A reading from the first book of Kings. The Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night. God said, "Ask something of me, and I will give it to you." Solomon answered, "O Lord my God, you have made me your servant, king, to succeed my father David. But I am a mere youth, not knowing at all how to act. I serve you in the midst of the people whom you have chosen, a people so vast that it cannot be numbered or counted. Give your servant, therefore, an understanding heart, to judge your people and to distinguish right from wrong. For who is able to govern this vast people of yours?" The Lord was pleased that Solomon made this request. So God said to him, "Because you have asked for this, not for a long life for yourself, nor for riches, nor for the life of your enemies, but for understanding, so that you may know what is right, I do as you requested. I give you a heart so wise and understanding that there has never been anyone like you up to now, and after you there will come no one equal to you." The word of the Lord. The response is, "Lord, I love your commands. Lord, I love your commands. I have said, O Lord, that my part is to keep your words. The law of your mouth is to me more precious than thousands of gold and silver pieces. Lord, I love your commands. Let your kindness comfort me according to your promise to your servants. Let your compassion come to me that I may live, for your law is my delight. Lord, I love your commands. For I love your commands more than gold, however fine. For in all your precepts I go forward. Every false way I hate. Lord, I love your commands. Wonderful are your decrees, therefore I observe them. The revelation of your words sheds light, giving understanding to the simple. Lord, I love your commands." A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Romans. Brothers and sisters, we know that all things work for good for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. For those he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, so that he might be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. And those he predestined, he also called. And those he called, he also justified. And those he justified, he also glorified. The word of the Lord.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure buried in a field, which a person finds and hides again, and out of joy goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant searching for fine pearls. When he finds a pearl of great price, he goes and sells all that he has and buys it. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net thrown into the sea, which collects fish of every kind. When it is full, they haul it ashore and sit down to put what is good into buckets. What is bad, they throw away. Thus it will be at the end of the age. The angels will go out and separate the wicked from the righteous and throw them into the fiery furnace, where there will be wailing and grinding of teeth. Do you understand all these things?" They answered, "Yes." And he replied, "Then every scribe who has been instructed in the kingdom of heaven is like the head of a household, who brings from his storeroom both the new and the old." The Gospel of the Lord.
The three parables about the kingdom speak of, I think, three kinds of people, or three ways people come to know and be part of the kingdom. The first person finds the treasure, the kingdom, and the good news completely by accident. Stumbles upon it unexpectedly in the field. Buries it again, that's about all you could do. And then he goes and sells everything to obtain it. Lucky for him. Now the second person is the merchant who shows even more initiative. It says he was searching for fine pearls. Big and beautiful pearls were worth more than most gemstones at the time that this gospel was written. It says he comes across this pearl of great price and sells everything. He is all in to get it. Good for him, I say. He was out working for it. In the third parable, Jesus changes the imagery and says the kingdom is like this net, catching all kinds of folks. Good fish, bad fish, red fish, blue fish. Remember the book? Sounds similar to the parable we had just recently of the field, where the weeds and the wheat grow together. So here they are, together in this big net. The people in this parable, well, some of them just happen to be there. They may be in it, exposed to it, surrounded by it, but not know or appreciate it until they're out of it, like a fish out of water. They are the unconscious and complacent kingdom members. Having said this, the question becomes, which of the three persons are you? Did I stumble upon the kingdom? Am I searching for it? Am I asleep or unaware that I'm in the midst of the kingdom? Did you stumble upon the kingdom? Maybe you never intended to become a Christian or Catholic, but you met the love of your life, and she or he happened to be Catholic and introduced you to the faith. Sometimes when Deacon Phil and I are preparing couples, I know that we sometimes get questions from, people who were totally unfamiliar with our faith. And it's a great time to kind of introduce and be an ambassador for our Catholic faith. Our parish school has introduced some of our favorite families to the faith. Parents liked what they heard and saw in our school and made the journey across the courtyard to see what? I shouldn't say what, no, I mean who, Jesus, that motivates us for that ministry. And then they bought the field. Did you search it out? Were you looking for something else or more, like the merchant? The bigger, the brighter, the pearl of great price. Some people intellectually find the church. Some people intellectually find the kingdom in the faith, our faith in Jesus Christ, and then they come to love it. Most oftentimes, though, the faith is kind of caught rather than just taught. But for some people, it's that way. I know an officer in the Navy who was really an agnostic. He would say probably he was an atheist even, who was assigned to a submarine tour. And on that tour, he brought a whole bunch of books, and he just read and read and read and read. Interested in philosophy, kind of read more about the truth in his search for truth and knowledge. Some of the philosophical works turned to theology, and ends up reading Augustine, and then not after Augustine, Aquinas. And that spoke to him and gave him the intellectual framework to hang the gift of faith upon. And he needed that first. And so now he's a priest. He's even a Monsignor. He's no longer in subs. Monsignors don't fit well into subs. Maybe you're a net Catholic, and a member of the kingdom. You're here because that's what your school of fish, your family, and your friends does. My family is Italian and Sicilian, so I am Catholic. Our family culture is Catholic. We baptize our big, chunky, bald babies in a christening dress passed down now 4 or 5 generations. That's what we do. But is it out of convention and tradition with a small t, or Christianity and tradition with a big T? Net Christians are those depending on the water, the environment, being Christian enough to swim and be seen to be considered and counted as a good fish when the net is drawn. This manifests, you've heard it, I'm spiritual but not religious. I'm Catholic but I don't go to Mass. What they're saying is, I identify but I don't do anything about it. As a people who would rely on their culture being Catholic or Christian enough to count them as good fish, when the catch is sorted, beware. Our culture, even our church, can have some pretty stinky fish in it. And I want to strengthen that. I want to strengthen the net and mend the net, which is our church and our culture, our Judeo-Christian culture, with all the esteem I have ecumenically, in profound respect for the diverse, varied, and venerable tradition of others. I want to mend the net and strengthen it because I believe our world will be better because of it. That which our culture, our Judeo-culture, Christian culture brings. Let me say this about the 3 parable paradigms. The people. At each time, actually, every time, most times, each one of us could be any one of those 3. And maybe all of them. I know I was a net Catholic, surely. Could my family, with its root, identify with anything else? So I was Catholic. Just like I was true to my roots as a Southerner or happily transplanted here. It's part of my identity that I grew up with, my culture that I formed me, my environment. Kind of like that 3rd paradigm. In school, by junior high, and for sure by my senior high school, and then throughout college with my love of history, I stumbled upon, like that 1st paradigm, that person who stumbles upon it, stumbled upon the art and importance, the immense role the church had in the history of the West, our Western culture that I love. The immense role and importance it had in forming that which I believe to be beautiful and true. As I was graduating, I thought maybe of doing something else before committing to the next thing, and that's always before us. You know, poor kids right now, they commit to the next thing. They have to commit, they're committing. Seniors are already starting to think about where would they go to college, and then when you're in college, what am I going to do, seniors in college? You start to think about the next thing. My next thing had 2 great options. But I was like, those are good, but maybe I was looking for something a little bigger and brighter and better. There was this pull. That I should follow this attraction I had for something special. That was the word I could use. To do something special. So in a crazy commitment to poverty, which we called simple living, to community, living with some folks I didn't know before, that commitment, into social justice, I put everything on hold for this Peace Corps type experience for Christ, a Peace Corps for Christ, which is the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. Now, I didn't really know anything about the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, but I did have a wisdom person, a Jesuit spiritual director and priest, who helped me and said, before you do the Peace Corps, think about this. He was so wise. He was a very wise guy. Kind of like that first reading with Solomon. Do you have a wisdom person? Do you have a wisdom person in your life? Somebody with that understanding heart that can help you decide right and wrong? Maybe you could be that person for somebody. That's a gift. Solomon could ask for anything, and he asked for that. He asked rightly. Thank the Lord for that person that you may have in your life like that. Because, see, that was my merchant mode. I sought, explored, thought aloud about it, prayed aloud about it. I worked, and yes, even sacrificed for that which was bigger and better and brighter. Service of the kingdom. And I loved it. And I was all in. I was and I am all in. I was and I am ever more convinced that I found my treasure. It wasn't buried in a field, nor jewel in some safe. It's Jesus in that tabernacle. From all my experience, my searching, my study, my kicking up dirt in so many fields, I have not found anything more ultimate than love. The ultimate reality, the most enduring and endearing, the most powerful and persuasive, the most creative dynamic in the universe. It is the Big Bang that calls everything into creation. And the revelation of that love is God. I've not found anything that personifies that ultimate reality as clearly as Jesus Christ. And I'm all in because His love. I'm all in because His love, it also reconciles. His love is recreative. With Christ there is love. With Christ there is love and forgiveness. With Christ, the pearl of great price, there is, my brothers and sisters, peace. And living this reality, living this truth, well, we need to do it joyfully. That's how we're going to mend the net. Not a whole lot of joy out there right now. A good friend of mine says, I can't even watch the news anymore. Most saints had some experience of joy, even in the midst of hardship. Living our faith joyfully, that's what we need to mend the net. Joy is the net, as I told you many times, Mother Teresa used to say, is the net with which we catch souls. Joy is the net with which we catch souls. Does not mean it's going to be easy. There's going to be a sacrifice. The people in the parable, they sell it all. Doesn't mean you can always explain it either. I know when I tried to explain my limited commitment to the Jesuit Volunteer Corps to my fraternity brothers, they're like, you are gonna do what? Can't always explain it. Because this is what we do. Sometimes you just say, this is what we do, and it's my turn to do it. This is what we do, and it's my turn to do it. It may be rough going. And when it is, I want you to take to heart the wonderful reading we have from Paul. When it gets going, when the going gets rough, read Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 8. Paul writes to the Romans, we know that all things work for good for those who love God, who are called according to His purpose. I am very serious, probably one of the most important chapters in the New Testament you could read. If I had to take a motto, this would be it. Some of you know I have vanity tags on my car. And I take them each year and I put them in the garage, and it's just like something I do. This passage was so important, and I wanted everybody that I met, and in any way that I could, to get people to read it. I put it on my tag one year. Some of you remember. So you've only got so many letters. So it was Romans, RM 8, chapter 8. Unfortunately, some of the parishioners said, why does Monsignor say roommate on his license tag? He said, he's like advertising for a roommate, which is like, no, please, the bishop frowns on that. Romans 8, this passage is 8:28. Through all my phases in my life, he says, in all things, we know in all things, through all the phases in my life, and those paradigm shifts of pursuing the kingdom, I can see this to be true. Not immediately, but with the perspective of time. Through success and through setback, I can see God's hand shaping me, molding me, trying to conform me to the image of His Son. He says, we know all things work for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose. He foreknew those He predestined to be conformed to the image of His Son. And so that's how it happens, not just with our success, but by the cross. Why would He only use the positive? The positive. Steel is forged by fire and the hammer. And none of us should expect to avoid the crucible that will conform us to His image. And if we are to live in the kingdom and participate in the building of that kingdom, thanks be to God's grace, we should expect nothing different than that. Suffering shapes me as much as my success. It's hard. It's hard. And it's hard when it's me, and it's hard as your pastor when I see it. Innocent suffering is probably the worst. I've told you about the loss of my nephew many a time, but the great lessons that came from that. An unexpected loss is tough. But with the perspective of gratitude and time and having the gift of faith, we can see things differently, not at first, but later. We've lost way too many young lives in this parish. A well-meaning friend, a parishioner, grappling with the loss of a wonderful kid, said to the mother, when and if I get to heaven and see Jesus, I'm going to ask Him why these things happen. This mother of great faith said in that instant, when we see Jesus, these things won't matter. Do you know someone with a faith like that? Who has that vision of St. Paul and the wisdom of Solomon? A person of the kingdom, and with a view to the kingdom that it's all going to be okay. That God's working it out. And that God still loves us. Maybe you know somebody like that who's got the answer. Maybe you need somebody who will help you find that answer. The answer that is the treasure, the faith. And so I pray today, give me, Lord, the wisdom of Solomon contained in that first reading, to have an understanding heart, to distinguish between right and wrong. Give me the gift of wisdom, not for myself, but for others. And give me the wisdom of that mother who, at the perspective of Paul, awaken in me this vision that I may see all things working, leading, guiding me as I and others stumble and search for the treasure that is your Son. We stand and profess this faith.
Where your treasure is, there your heart shall be. What do